Okay, we're officially live now. Welcome everyone to this second week of Purpose Redefined. For anyone that missed last week, shame on you, but even if you did miss it, it's available. It was a very good and thought-provoking discussion. I'm just glad that everyone was able to get so much from it. Before we just go into the program, let's just have a very quick word of prayer, and then I'm just gonna give each panelist an opportunity to just tell us a bit about themselves within just about 30 seconds. I'm just giving you a bit of forewarning now, panelists. All right, so let's pray. Heavenly Father, I'd like to thank you, Lord, for just blessing us with the opportunity to have life and just to be able to fellowship with one another. I ask that, Lord, even as we're on this careers panel discussion program, I ask that, Lord, you help us so that from this experience, we may be able to help others to really be able to discover the career that they believe that they should go into. And I ask that, Lord, you help us, Lord, so that we may convey all the information that we've acquired over the years in the best way possible. Continue to be with us and abide with us all. In Jesus' name I pray all these things. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. I'll let whoever wants to go first, but essentially, just like, an elevator pitch, I'm pretty sure all of you guys are probably familiar with that term. If you're not, all it is that in a very brief period of time, you need to basically tell me who you are. And in that period of time, hopefully you're able to cross quite well. I see some people are getting a bit nervous, but just relax. So in 30 seconds, I'll just let whoever wants to go first. So I guess Enoch, you can go first. And then anyone else who wants to go first, just go ahead. So floor is yours.
Brilliant. Hi all, delighted to be here. Enoch Aintree is my name. I am a son of an Adventist, a husband, and a tech salesperson, and I've been in that trade for over a decade in client management and helping clients with efficient solutions with software, particularly in the finance sector. I am like every other kid that grew up in South London, well, born in Ghana, grew up in South London, trying to make something out of myself, and I'm still figuring it out. But what I do like doing outside of that is I help coach a lot of young Black women to get into tech, particularly tech sales. And also I run an NGO called 100K for Ghana with the sole purpose of creating social enterprises in Ghana for the less fortunate and the underdeveloped. So that's a little bit about me, and I'm keen to hear about the rest of you guys. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go next. I'm Dr. Audrey McGill-Soyam, a specialist in change management, especially in businesses. I've run my own business since 2000, so that's about 22 years. I hope that doesn't give away my age. I'm passionate about working with businesses, especially small businesses and businesses from ethnic minorities. We've helped a whole range of businesses from startups to existing, especially to secure funding. I have a college with over 400 to 500 students, and all our students are fully funded. So if you're looking for people to get into professional development in management, health and social care, business, customer services, the likes, we are here to support and to help you. Adventist by birth, Adventist by nature.
Brilliant. I feel like everyone else is scared to go next after that.
Listen, I'm going right now because I should have gone first. I should have.
That's why I went in quick.
Yeah, my name is Kenroy Malcolm, and while I don't have quite some of the accolades as my predecessors just now, I'll start by saying that I'm a man of God, a family man, which is something that I hold really, really dear to me. If any of you know me, you know that I'm all about family. Of course, I recognize the fact that family is a gift. And so I've always taken it quite serious with how I look after my family and those around me. A little bit about me, I work as a behavioral support worker, and that particularly working with children with challenging behavior, such as like autism and other ADHD and other challenging behavior. I work out of a school normally. I've got aspirations like most young people, one of which is to one day get myself on the property ladder in terms of becoming a property investor. I think that will be my ultimate dream. But for now, I'm building up slowly, working towards that, looking after my family and, of course, those around me. Heavily involved in my church. Wherever I live, whatever church I go to, I like to throw myself in there and make sure that I'm doing the Lord's work. So yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
All right, brilliant. I don't know who wants it. I know I'm just gonna start picking them. Adenike, you're next.
You know when you know you're actually next, but you're just waiting for it. So I'm Adenike, guys. I am a mother, a wife, and I have gone through different career changes significantly lately. I started in PE, went to law, now I'm doing social work. God's direction, not just mine. And one day I hope to start my own business back up again, which I had before during lockdown. And I'd like to progress that more, and like Kenroy as well, also like get onto the property market and build something for my family that is going to be long term, and then also help others through that. So that is me, based in Birmingham. Yeah, don't know what else to say other than next.
Thank you, Adenike, and last but not least, Samara.
Hi everybody, good evening. My name is Samara. I am by profession a housing officer. I work as a housing officer managing properties within the Kensington and Chelsea area. I'm also a full-time student. I study management at university. And then out of my 9 to 5 and everything else, I model, I create content, I write. I pretty much do a few things to say, but yeah, that's me. I'm Adventist as well, so I do have some roles within the church, and yeah, that's it really.
All right, brilliant. Thank you very much. So before this actual program started, Enoch and I were actually having a bit of a discussion as to how it is I've been able to meet all these people. I'll be honest, I think maybe it's just God just placed me in the right place at the right time, because funny thing is, it's not a case where like I put myself in all these different networking events. But one thing I've realized is that there's so much power in a conversation there's so much power in you having a conversation with somebody. You know, you can just think that you're just having a conversation when you're just saying hello and how are you? And next you know, you can find out from that conversation, like Enoch, that he has an NGO that's helping people in Ghana. Or for example, speaking to Ike, yeah, that she has a hair care product that's revolutionary. And it's crazy because funny thing is, I think as youth, that's one thing that we lack. We generally will just go to university, basically tick the boxes and get the degree that we need, and just think that, okay, hopefully I just end up in a role that will pay a lot. But the one thing that's missing in all that is networking. If you don't network, there's no way you're going to be able to reach the heights you want to get to. That's the main reason for this particular event. So without any further ado, I think I'm just going to throw the first question to Enoch. So the question I want to ask Enoch is, what was your main inspiration for 100K for Ghana? Because I know that it's quite a new initiative, and it's a case where obviously there's no specific reason for you to have to do it. Of course, it's something you're doing at your own time. So what was your motivation behind creating 100K for Ghana?
Yeah, so it was one of curiosity and also one of just wanting to always have a solution to a problem. I think that's just primarily been in tech. What I tend to do in tech, particularly because my role isn't technical, it's a sales role, and far clever people than I am come to me for assistance to help them with their organization. And then I have to go to even smarter people to find a solution for those problems. So whenever I come across a problem, I want to have a solution to that. And sometimes my wife will tell you, she just wants me to listen to her, not always have an answer to something, but we're not going to talk about that. So when I discovered a platform where I was around a lot of Ghanaians who were talking about issues within Ghana and even issues with Ghanaians in the UK, the question I kept answering is, okay, so what have we done about it, right? If we're talking about unemployment, if we're talking about people who are underemployed, and that's the other big thing, right? Because there's a lot of us Ghanaians here and in Ghana who work so hard, but we don't get paid enough. And my question is, what is it that we're doing about it? And I came to find out the number one thing was we weren't sharing enough information, right? There isn't a lot of information sharing as various other ethnicities do. We tend to have a bit of a gap in there. And also we're not as collaborative with each other. And again, I can go on about other ethnicities who do that, and we don't tend to do that enough. So the concept of 100K for Ghana is really, I know there's about 4 million Ghanaians outside of Ghana and about 30 million in Ghana. And the concept is, even if just 100,000 of us, less than 1% of us, came together, we shared our resources, we shared our expertise, and we also pulled a little bit of our money, right? Because we all give to charity, but imagine if we pull that money we give to charity and have specific goals that we solve some of the problems that we all know about, then we go from one problem to another, we're solving it, and then it's sustainable there. So for me, it's a lifelong challenge I've taken upon myself with my team, which, I started the charity this time last year, and we're growing. We have a team of 15 core members now, where we're looking at individual challenges and bringing resources, expertise, and funding together to attack those problems, right? So that was the primary goal for me.
Thank you very much for sharing that. It was quite enlightening to hear. And what I find interesting is that, so probably you guys are thinking to yourselves, why have you invited me on this specifically? The reason why is because I believe in my heart of hearts that you guys are entrepreneurs. Because even though most people think of entrepreneur as somebody that just takes on financial risk, an entrepreneur is actually someone that finds a gap in the market and says, you know what are we doing about it? What are we going to do to address these problems? And what you've said about what is going on with 100K for Ghana is perfect. I'm a Ghanaian myself. You constantly hear Ghanaians complaining, why is this happening? Why is that happening? But it doesn't make any problem. It doesn't really help towards the solution of it. You need to find a solution, and for finding a solution, you're able to address the matter, and obviously the matters to bed. I really like the fact that you're representing 100K. Obviously, I even noticed that you're wearing merchandise 100K as well. So next person I want to ask a question would be Adenike. So Adenike, I know you started a hair color product called Mimi's Curls, and I know it's based off of your Makai. So do you mind just giving us a bit of enlightenment about that, as well as obviously juggling that with studies and it?
Okay, so the name is Mimi's Curls. My daughter's name is Makaya Ariel. And basically, the initiative to start that came from the fact of lockdown, really. So during lockdown, I like to save. Like, I think I have a problem in saving. Like, if I don't save, I feel like I've done something wrong. And I couldn't save for my daughter, which is my priority. So for me, that was an issue. So before I moved to Birmingham, I used to do hair products on the side, and people things that people just wanted me to make for them. And I was thinking to myself, okay, so what can I do? Something that's going to be hands-on, because I like hands-on things, but something that eventually Makaya can continue herself, because that's for you. So that's how the initiative came, really. And I thought, okay, let me go back into that. So I've done a feelers kind of thing of what people were looking for, what's not there on the market. Because yes, we've got a lot of natural hair care, but what is in the natural hair care, if that makes sense. So that was my main kind of projection off of it, and what people were looking for. So I actually started that plus another side business, which was food boxes. But I pushed the Mimi's Curls more because it was more from Kaya. And it was just literally the basics of what people needed to do, your moisturizers, your conditioners. Haven't done shampoos yet, which a lot of people wanted. But it was just something to start instead of just sitting there, and something that was going to build something residual for her. So should anything happen, she's got something to start her off in life, and something that she can also continue with. It was hard balancing it as a parent, studying as well, because I was studying. But I think in life, when you know that you've got something, or you know you need to do something, and it's something that also God has blessed, it makes a big difference. And I think that kind of helps and gives a drive for something more. It's not easy. It's not where I want it to be. Like, don't get that mixed up. But like, it was a stepping stone in the right direction to know that this is something that has purpose and can continue. So yeah, I don't know if there was anything else you wanted to know specifically.
No, that was perfect. And what I find interesting is obviously there are different motivations for people starting businesses. You know, Enoch's idea of why he wants to create 100K for Ghanaians, and realizing that Ghanaians we're not very at being able to find solutions. Whereas, for example, Mimi's Curls was your way of actually basically helping your daughter be able to understand how business works, having something for herself. And it's something that's so interesting because I know black hair care products are one, very expensive, and also it's very hard to find the right mix. But the fact that you actually set aside time to find out what was perfect for your daughter is just shows the fact that if somebody really has enough drive and initiative, the amount that they can achieve is literally out of this world. And yeah, so kudos to you. So the next person I want to ask a question would be Kemroy. So Kemroy actually failed to mention this in the introduction. I don't know why, but he has a bit of a YouTube career. And funny enough, he actually made it into a news article as a result of it. So do you mind just sharing that a bit about yourself, Kemroy?
You know what? I had planned on mentioning it, but I guess I'm just reminding everyone that I am human. I do forget. But yeah, so it started over lockdown, and to be honest, it's something that I've always wanted to do. I love technology. I've always been, on the cutting edge, so to speak, of technology. But I always, years ago, wanted to start my own technology channel on YouTube to create content, because not only was it something I found interesting and fascinating, but obviously, who knows? I'm very much under the belief that, sometimes you start something and you never know where it might take you. And I think that you hear stories sometimes when people share to say that they uploaded one video and all of a sudden they're sitting on a huge company doing whatever else. And I didn't start it to say as a business, but I more started this channel, and it was over lockdown. So in the end, I didn't go down the technology route. And a little story, my wife and I, we used to live in London. We moved out of London to the West Midlands, for those of you who can relate. And we moved primarily because we recognized that we wanted to provide a lifestyle for our family, ideally buying a house, having some more children, and just not stressing and just working to live, if that makes sense. I know some people can relate. And while we've done that, it was a huge thing, because a lot of people, where you grow up, family, friends, church, all of your ecosystem is in one place. So to move 100 miles away was pretty radical, to say the least. But anyway, we did that in 2019, bought our first house. We were, felt great. A lot of work. It was definitely a fixer-upper. And so my wife and I, we started thinking, what are we going to do for our family, for our children, much like you had in EK, building a legacy so that our children will have a stepping stone to move forward. I grew up being an immigrant from Jamaica. I grew up seeing my mom struggle, trying to bring us up as three boys here in a foreign land, so to speak. So we didn't have a gold spoon in our mouth. And I recognized that she was trying her best to give us a better life. And so I wanted to reciprocate that for my girls. I've got two girls now. And so we realized that we had to move, we had to do something differently. And I think there's one thing I want to leave with everybody here. And I've now become an advocate of moving out of your surroundings if it will help to give you the lifestyle that you're looking for. And, so my channel started primarily to try and document our journey of getting on the property ladder, because we actually wanted to buy a second home, and we were literally so close to doing it. But I don't know if you guys have heard about this little thing called a pandemic. We saw that happening. And in the end, we decided to step back. We had some money saved up, and we said, all right, what are we going to do? I was just a bit wary and cautious. And, in business, you've got to sometimes take risks, but also you've got to kind of look down the road and see whether or not it's a risk worth taking. So in the end, we didn't do that. I started creating content on YouTube, which, by the way, didn't come natural to me, still is very alien, but it's now become a hobby of mine, and it's opened up doors to other avenues as well. Long and short of it, because we didn't go down the route of buying a property, we decided to try and reinvest that money into our current home. And at some point, I'm sure that it will, pay dividends with the investments that we're putting into the property. So I've decided, along with my family, to start doing vlogs and DIY projects and other, type of interesting video. I hope at least some people are finding them interesting, and sort of growing a connection and a network online. And it's been a great bit of fun for me, my family as well, documenting our journey. And out of it, like I said, you just never know what will happen. So we basically met. I recently met with somebody, for example, who runs their own business, which is a mindfulness business. And they've approached me and asked me to edit videos for their company, for their business. And again, that's not exactly what I started out for. But however, by making myself, putting myself out there, almost becoming a bit vulnerable, if you want to call it that, new avenues have opened up. There've been other things along the way. And I'm sure if I continue on this journey, more will follow. The channel is growing. Started off not really expecting too much. I always like to, manage my expectations. But, we've recently hit 1,000 subscribers, which is a big deal on the platform, as I'm sure many of you might know. And, making great connections with people literally all over the world, from the US to Africa to Europe. So it's just been an amazing experience. And like I said, just trying to put myself in that position so that, when that opportunity comes, by God's grace, we'll be able to take that on board. And so, yeah, that's what I've been doing recently. Like I said, it's in the hobby stage now, but hopefully as it continues to grow, we can maybe set up a business or benefit in some other way, as I'm sure other people will benefit from that. So yeah, that's just a little bit about how our YouTube channel all started up, really.
Cameron, thank you. And one thing that really came across to me is the term transferable skills. And for anyone that's been in an interview or has remotely had anything to do with jobs, one thing you realize is most of the times when you're in interviews, they don't really care. Of course, obviously they care about the experience and the grades, but they care more about you as a person. And what you said was so interesting because, like you said, you had no intention of using this YouTube channel as a way to develop your career. But funny enough, that's what's actually helped you. And it's actually helped me in so many different respects. I mean, when Devon and I started this ministry, we weren't thinking of the ramifications it would have on, multiple other churches. But even going to camp meeting, people were talking to me about my ministry, and I think to myself, my ministry's not doing anything. What am I doing that's so different? And what I find interesting is that it's by you putting yourselves in those situations of uncomfortability that you actually see not just yourself growing, but see your platform and your network growing. So one thing I would use to encourage anyone that's young or that's just thinking to themselves, oh, you know what, I don't know how to do something, just do it. Because at the end of the day, if you make a mistake, you will learn from that mistake, and that through you making that mistake, you'll then be able to grow. So then steadily moving on, we're going to look at Samara, and I want Samara just to be able to just to speak to us about her experience, because I don't understand how you have the time to be a full-time student and also basically have a bit of a business yourself. I just wanted you to just kind of just explain how you go about that process, and also just explain what it is that you do in terms of your business as well.
I always get this question about how I do it. I don't know. Obviously I do a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, but the job I do isn't really 9 to 5. So as I said, I manage properties. I manage 194 properties. So if something goes wrong, I have to be there. So I've woken up some days to there was a fire the night before and I have to go. So it can be difficult to plan because I can have my week planned and I'm going to do this at this time. But if there's an emergency, something happens, I have to be on site. So what's helped a lot is planning ahead. It's June the 9th, but I can tell you what I'm doing until August the 20th. Like, I'm very much meticulous in my planning, because if you don't plan your steps, you're going to lose your direction. Does that make sense? On the side now, I do modeling. That's the main thing I do on the side. I've always loved pictures, loved taking pictures. And so I kind of fell into modeling by accident during the lockdown. And I was contacted, I reached out to a photographer for opportunity to work with a brand, and I was shortlisted, and I actually got to work for the brand. And since that first shoot, I've been contacted since to be booked. So started unpaid, and I started to get little change, £20, £50. Then I eventually started to get bigger bookings that are worth a bit more for my money and my time. So that's fun. It can be difficult because obviously, as being from church, you're used to certain standards, and there's certain things in the industry now that I personally not comfortable with doing. So a lot of the time I'm saying no to, I say no to more jobs than I actually do get booked, but I'd rather have my, what's the word? Not dignity, but I'd rather stay true to what I believe and what I'm comfortable with, if that makes sense. On the side of that, I'm a few things. I call myself multifaceted because of how much I do. I'm a trained and insured beauty therapist specializing in facials. I have a YouTube channel. I have a blog. So the blog is the first thing I started. I've been writing for 4 years. I started when I was 20. Just a blog talking about life and relationships and faith and just general mental health and well-being tips. So if I talked about say like a relationship and ways to find out if that relationship is toxic, I might do a YouTube video expanding on that a little bit more. How well the blog done led me to launch a podcast. I launched a podcast this year on my birthday, basically exploring what I talked about on the blog. So I've been writing since I was 20. I'm now nearly 25. So the things I've written about and the experiences I've had have grown, have changed. And so what I do on the pod is I invite my guests over, or I invite my friends down to discuss the things I wrote about like from 2020 and explore the new themes. So we talk on rejection, we talk on friendships, we talk on faith, we talk on church. And that's what I do in the pod. And then I think that's everything I do officially. There are other things in the pipeline, other things I'm working on. But what I've learned a lot this past 2 years is not to rush things. Other people can have your ideas, but they'll never have your execution. So don't rush just to do it. I'd rather wait until it makes sense, because with everything I do now, there's no time for me to do everything else. So there's no point forcing it just so that I can do it to say I'm doing it. I've allowed myself patience, because what's for me will always be mine. If God wills it, it will happen. So I've got things that I want to do and more to come. But for now, that's what I do.
Thank you very much. Obviously, I know it doesn't sound like you've done a lot, but you do quite a lot, and it's quite encouraging to hear that. It's because you basically created a process, being able to manage everything. That's the reason why you've been able to become so multifaceted the way you are. The fact that you're only like around 25 and you're doing all this stuff is just crazy, because people that are around that age, you know what? Let me just do my 9 to 5, get the money I need, and just go to bed. Not really thinking. They're not really thinking in that sense, but it's really encouraging to hear what you had to say. I know, Enoch, you had a question to ask. Feel free to ask the question or you wanted to say.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say, first of all, I'm again delighted to be here, and I'm impressed by all of your stories and your journeys, and it actually encourages me a lot. It seems like there's a few Midlands crew here, so that's also quite refreshing. Now, I'm also in East Midlands, in Northampton, so not a million miles away from Birmingham. But I did want to ask specifically Adenike and Kenroy, as you're building up your businesses, and well, particularly you, Adenike, looking at your daughter to also be part of that. How are you ensuring that your daughter will in fact be interested in the organization you're building and to take it the next stage when she's ready?
Okay, so when I started this, another reason why I started was because Makaya's got severe allergies, life-threatening allergies, and everything that is in the natural products, yes, they are natural, but other people don't understand that not everybody can have the same ingredient, or not everybody can have the same food. So a lot of the drive as well was making tailor-made products for people who may have a specific allergy and they can't have certain ingredients, so tailoring it for them. So that's one of the specialisms of Mimi's Curls. But everything I do, she's involved. Like when it comes to doing the labels, when it comes to a lot of the customers, some of them have children, so we put little gift things in them like pebbles and bubbles and stuff like that. Makaya is the person, she's picking them out. She's creating sets that go together. She's helping me with the whipping and pouring in, but also spilling it at the same time. So those are the things that I'm trying to allow her to see herself. And then also not just that, like the money she gets, she's tithing that. So when she goes to church, she's got her tithes and she's got her offering and those sort of things from it. And when it's a case of like even with the Instagram, even though I'm so bad at that. So, you know, Samara, you're good at the content. We might need to talk on that because I am useless at that. But even things like that, making sure that she's sometimes doing some of the little videos that go out. Sometimes when we're sending a message to a customer to let them know like your order's on the way, I'll get her to do it in like a voice message. Those little things just to keep her going. And if she turns around and says, you know, I'm actually not interested in this, that is totally fine. But hopefully I pray by God's grace, it's kind of installed something in her to want to do something that she enjoys later on in life. And she has a passion to keep driving for.
No, that's amazing. Because I feel like, again, when we look at other cultures, they do include their kids and their family members in particular businesses that they're building. And then in 15, 20 years time, those become, you know, multi-million-dollar businesses. And my point about collaboration earlier on is not just a family collaboration, but other family members and friends can get involved, and we build that one thing for it to turn over multi-millions, and then everyone's okay sort of thing, rather than going at it alone. I do, however, want to leave you, Adenike and Kenroy, at peace. And you may already be looking at this, but as you do have children and you're talking about investing and making sure that they're set up for life. I don't have kids, but I know friends who do. And, you know, looking at things like stocks and shares, ISAs are very, very good for them. So companies like St. James's Place, companies like Vanguard have something called life strategy accounts where, you know, in a blink of an eye, 10 years, 15 years is going to come and your kids are going to be big, right? And if you're looking at the way we've struggled to purchase our own properties, right? Someone like Kenroy and I had to move up from London just to acquire properties over here in Midlands. Hopefully that won't be the case for our kids when we start looking at putting money in the right places so that it also generates more money for them. So the life strategy with Vanguard, St. James's Place, AJ Bell, they offer lifetime ISAs and stocks and shares ISAs. To give you guys an example, I had a tiny amount in a St. James's Place stocks and shares ISA that I had in before the pandemic. And although the pandemic was terrible, what happened with stock prices that it went extremely high. By the way, caveat, this isn't financial advice. I'm not a financial broker or anything. But what I found is that the tiny bit of money I had in the St. James's Place stocks and share ISA account, towards the end of the pandemic, it actually gone over 100%, right? Over 100%. In fact, by the time I took it out, it actually dipped a little bit. So if I had taken it out a couple of months before, I would have seen about 100, 120%. So, but over a lifetime, and a lifetime can be 10, 15, 20 years, as you have children, just drop money in those kind of accounts, and then at least that will be sorted in terms of buying a property or whatever for them. So I'll leave that there.
All right, thank you for the sage advice, and I hope people that are watching on YouTube actually take a note of this stuff, because it's not easy to find out this information, but someone's giving it to you, so just take it as it is. I don't know if Auntie Audrey is available right now, but just wanted to ask, what is the motivation behind you deciding to create a school? Because obviously that's something quite difficult to do, especially in this country. So what is that called your motivation for creating a?
Yeah, it's difficult, and it's a you should be in for the long game. It's not a get rich quick scheme. You should be in for the long game, be committed, be dedicated, be willing to work within the rules, and because we are fully funded, so we are working towards so many rules and regulations of the government, of ESFA and all of that. But I think ultimately, if you have a driving force, like my other lady was saying, you have children and that's what makes you do these things. I have 4 kids. So I have to be also really, really committed, making sure that there's something for my kids. And right now, 2 of my kids are working with me. The older one is our operations manager, and the second one is our general manager, especially for booking exams and things like that. And when you have your family with you and they understand what it is you're doing, you sleep better at night because you know that these people know, they have your back, that kind of thing. Because here it's very difficult to work with people. What I find in my business, a lot of people are coming in there for what they can get from you. So having the right people, regardless of whether they're your family members or not, is critically and crucially important from my experience. I've been going on now for 22 years. Bigger businesses have come and gone bust, and sometimes when you see yourself, you think, I'm still here. You have to give glory and total praise and honor to God, because it's only God that is keeping you. If you look at yourself, you're an ethnic minority, you're in London and you have a business that is fully funded by the government, and it has not gone under regardless of all the turbulences, pandemic included. During the pandemic, we did not have to chase a single invoice. The government reassured us that our monies will be paid every month on time. But it comes at a price. You have to be willing to really work hard, sleepless nights, diligence, always keeping an eye out, because there are so many people who are there with you, but they're not for you. That's my experience. You have to really be diligent in what it is that you're doing and committed to God, because even if you're diligent, you can't have your eyes on everything. There are times when things just come up to you and you notice and this is because God is on my side. This week, for example, I was going through one of my teacher's work, and I noticed some irregularities because he's cutting corners, just trying to get money off me and make himself rich and stuff like that. This is God's leading. Sometimes you would be there and you trust that everybody knows what they are doing or should be doing what they're doing, regardless of what industry you're in. I'm saying this for you, the younger ones coming up. Be vigilant, be diligent, because everybody fundamentally tends to be looking out for themselves. Do not be complacent. Just keep an open eye, keep an eye on what it is that you are doing, and involve God at every stage of your business, every stage, literally. Yeah, that's my bit.
Thank you. This very, very very, very good words, and obviously the fact that you've got so many years of experience behind you. I mean, even if you're feeling, I feel like we have no choice but to listen to you. You're such an experienced veteran. But yeah, what you said is so funny enough, when people are, in general, I think when we're going through the whole educational system, we're more or less just taught, what, you need to make sure that you have done this, you have done that, you've done that. There's no you or anything like that. And I think one of the beautiful things about, having a business is not just you being able to create a legacy through, the generations underneath you, but you to be able to provide a platform for, basically every generation coming after you. So it's not a case where they have to go through the same struggles that you're going through, because it doesn't make any sense. We've seen our parents struggle, then we're struggling, and we're going to see our kids struggling. It's like, when is this cycle going to end? When Jesus comes? I'm pretty sure that's not what the plan is. And I think even if you really look at it back in biblical times, it was a case where most of the time that, all of them were operating their businesses, was a case where they were literally just handing down everything that they'd already made to the next generation, which is most likely the reason why it wasn't a case where the next generation was struggling to find ways to earn meat. I mean, if you think about it, biblically, people like Jacob had 13 children. How on earth, in this day and age, you're supposed to have 13 children, on a basic salary? I'm pretty sure they had provisions in place. And it's crazy because the Bible speaks about this, but it's a case where, I guess maybe because of lack of faith, but also just lack of believing in ourselves, we find it hard to be able to break into these circles. And I really like what you said, Georgie, because it's so interesting that you decide to take initiative to start a school, and also just the fact that God has blessed you over all of these years, and also you've been able to help your children to be able to learn from you more. So I just wanted to ask another question. So the question I want to ask you all generally is, what would you say is the biggest setback you've suffered, in not just in terms of your career, but also in terms of your entrepreneurial journey, and how have you been able to combat that particular setback? So I'll just throw the question to Anthony. Microphone.
Sorry?
So the question I wanted to ask is, what is the biggest setback you've suffered in your career, and what did you do to combat that setback?
The biggest setback for me, like I said, is human greed and humans cutting corners and human being trying to make a quick buck from your organization. For me, is being naive to thinking that people who are with you in your ecosystem, as somebody else has mentioned, always have your back. They do not always have your back. They are there for their own selves. Since setting up my business in 2000, I've had about 10 of my teachers working for me, some of them are still working, who have gone on to set up their own business, and they've now become mushroom.
That's not just me then.
Yeah, I think we've lost Audrey a little bit there.
We lost her at mushroom.
Okay, what we'll do is I'll put a pin in what Auntie Audrey was going to say, and I'll just pose the question to somebody else. I don't know who wants to go next.
I'll go next. In terms of setback, I don't believe I've had anything that major. If anything, my business is still in its infancy, so I've yet to experience anything that major, as what Audrey was just saying. However, I think that what I have experienced is primarily because of the pandemic, in which, lining up to sort of pull the trigger to commit to something that is going to be huge, life-changing for the entire family. And then the pandemic came around and just put that, made that fall flat essentially. But I think that how we sort of dealt with it is, rather than resting on our laurels and sort of thinking, okay, that's that then. We decided to just approach from a different strategy and to try something different, and sort of reinvest our time, our money and energies into something else. And I think that that is definitely what you sometimes have to do. Sometimes you will get obstacles and you will try to go past them, but sometimes you've got to try and go around them, or go a different direction. And depends on where God is leading. You've got to be willing and brave enough to make that decision. Although you wanted to go left, perhaps God may want you to go right. And so you've got to be open to that. I always remember the story, as you were talking about Jacob and his children and the inheritance that they had. Always remember the story, especially as Christians. I think that, I don't know if it's just me, but there sometimes seem to be a taboo about getting into business, especially if you're a Seventh-day Adventist, because, we hold the Sabbath, in high regard, which is obviously correct. But at the same time, I think that we oftentimes just tell our kids and our children, just get a job, and hopefully it's a good job and you'll be able to manage. But obviously we can see that in society that we're living in right now, things are changing so rapidly that sometimes that's just not enough to create perhaps the lifestyle that you're trying to leave, or the legacy that you're trying to give for your children. And so you've got to be willing to be like those servants that receive those talents. And rather than just keeping them and burying them, you actually try to act upon them. And I think that that is the strategy that we're very much trying to do. And whatever, no matter how small your talent is to try and repurpose that, try and build on it, to cultivate it so that it can grow into something. Whether or not, maybe you're a good speaker. I see so many people making careers out of public speaking. Maybe you're good with finances, and you think, nobody's going to want to hear anything about finance. People are creating content that will give people the opportunity to build. You might have a 9-to-5 like many of us do, but you realize that your 9-to-5 put you in a good position to be able to give information or training or whatever it is to help somebody else. And so I think that, the pandemic has definitely been the biggest hiccup for myself and my family in terms of growing. However, I sort of just changed trajectory a little bit, and I can still see progress there. So, I think that's all I've got to say on that point, really.
Thank you very much for the advice, Cameron. And one thing I think that's so interesting what you said is just the fact that, specifically the pandemic, I believe has changed our mindset a lot, not just in terms of how we do church, but how we are operating in our lives, because we've realized that, systems that were in place before are no longer in place. For that reason, we need to basically learn how to become self-sufficient And in becoming self-sufficient, we now have to realize that there are things that are not necessarily within our comfort zone that we have to literally just do whether we like it or not. And I really like the fact that you mentioned that, because at the end of the day, that we've seen the fact that Boris Johnson's been in power for all this time. Now he's decided to resign. We've seen the fact that Rishi Sunak decided to say, I don't want to have anything to do with this job anymore. Now he's trying to gun for the top seat. It's like so many different things are changing around us, but we ourselves are not adapting to the change. And if we just go along with the change, we're literally just going to be blown away by everything. We need to be very sure and very secure in whatever our foundation is, and through that we'll be able to make it through whatever we're actually going through. Enoch, do you want to go next?
Yeah, no, I wanted to answer it because I think it's an important question, and then I've got a drop, unfortunately, guys. But like I said, I've enjoyed this. I'm glad to be amongst this circle. So actually, my biggest setback aligns to what you just said, Kinsley, and a bit of what Kenroy was saying about our comfort zone. So I'm a big black guy, always have been. And in my tech career, I've always been the black guy, young guy in the rooms I'm always in, whether it's a company I'm working for or whether it's at my client site. And quite often, my setback has been myself and the imposter syndrome that I quite often have. I would say, how am I dealing with it? To answer your question, it's a lot of therapy, right? And it's a lot of prayer, and it's also a lot of being aware and cognizant at the front of your mind that you belong in those rooms. So, and if I didn't belong in those rooms, I won't be there. And quite often, being around, middle class white people for the past, I don't know, over a decade, they're not that much smarter than we are. They're not even smarter than us. They're not more clever. It's just that they look the way they look. And therefore, by the rule of majority, they're more comfortable in those spaces, right? And so being a black guy, I often find myself shrinking myself to make the other person more comfortable. So the thought that I want to leave here is imposter syndrome is real, but it can be a bit big in our head, but of course our God is far, far bigger. So quite often, I would say that anyone listening or watching this later, remind yourself that your God is able and your God is big. Remind yourself that you belong in those rooms. And actually, remind yourself that if you're not in those rooms yet, you deserve a seat as those rooms, which is why I'm always encouraging Black young people, particularly women, to get into tech. Not selfishly because I want to see more Black people around, but also I believe that it really does provide a flexible career for all of us, and also the money isn't bad. So that's my leaving thought there, that imposter syndrome in anything we do, even if you're within circles of other Black people or comfortable, you will probably have imposter syndrome in a career or in a business. Pray about it. Therapy is also good, and just remind yourself that people who are far, far less intelligent than you are doing it, so you definitely will do it and will be successful.
Amen.
Thank you very much for that, Enoch.
Amen.
I think what I find so interesting about you mentioning imposter syndrome is that Enoch was the person that I end up speaking to help me be able to get into the career man today. So it's just funny that that's what he's struggling with, but he was able to help me to be able to overcome my own insecurities in my job. So I guess God is really doing something for you and really helping you with all the therapy that you've gone through. So thank you very much, Enoch. And it's a shame that you have to go, but I believe that the advice you've given to all of us has been something that really resonates with every single one of us. So thank you very much.
Amen.
You wanted to say something. Let me let you say what you want. You remember your thought? Or do you want me to come back to you?
Who, Auntie Audrey?
Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry.
Yeah, we lost you certainly at Mushroom.
Who are you speaking to now?
I'm speaking to you, Auntie Audrey.
Sorry, what?
By the connection cut off.
Oh, yeah. I don't remember what I said. Honestly, all I'm saying is your best business partner is God, really, truly, because And especially as a business person, all the my colleagues online will tell you, you don't switch off. When you're a business owner, you're not on a 9 to 5 schedule at all. Middle of the night, first thing in the morning, on the toilet seat, in the shower, your mind is churning things, and the Lord is speaking to you. And sometimes you can hear clearly. Other times it's an inspiration. So please, the Lord is your best business partner. Stay close to him, commit your plans to him, and he will guide and direct your path. I am a living testimony that he is a true and faithful business partner.
Thank you very much, Auntie Uzi. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
Denike, do you want to answer the question?
So like Kenroy, like in terms of like, I wouldn't say biggest setbacks, but I will agree in terms of what Enoch said, like sometimes ourselves, we are big setbacks to progress. And it's through that, like until you said, you have to trust God. Like he's your biggest business partner and the one person that you will be able to trust. And I think for me, studying kind of was a setback in some sense, but it was a good setback, if that makes sense. Like sometimes you might have setbacks and they're just temporary. And sometimes those setbacks are for bigger goals later on in life. Because sometimes God will tell you to slow down or to wait on him or to stop at a certain stage of something you may be doing. And it's for a good enough reason. We might not see that reason. We might not see that vision, but God is our best business partner at the end of the day. And I like that because sometimes I think as natural as we are as human beings, we forget the part of trusting God. We forget Isaiah 40, where we should wait on God. Because at the end of the day, when we're waiting him in that stillness, in that quietness, bigger things will come. We will be like that eagle. We will be soaring later on, whether it's 5 years from now, whether it's 2 years, 6 months. At the end of the day, it's at a stage where God knows where you may be ready for something, or where a business idea or anything may be ready for something. And for me, that's what I had to do through the studying and for everything that's going on. So like now, even though like the businesses isn't how it was in lockdown, it's a lot much slower. I know that like, you know, the little bits that's coming in here and there, it's still setting up, Makai's only 5. It's still setting up Makaya for something. And I'm still trusting God through the process. Even though sometimes I may not want to, I still know I have to. There's a difference. So yeah, that's just my part on that.
Amen.
Thank you very much. And what I like about what you said is God needs to really be at the center. And I think what's so interesting is that usually when we make plans, God's usually the last person that we seek, not what's really supposed to be done. And it makes me really think about and evaluate things in my life and realize that, many a time, sometimes I've decided to pick a career because I've thought to myself, well, yeah, this looks better in terms of money, but not realizing that sometimes if I really think back on those things, I thought to myself, the opportunity that was offered to me in the other direction was actually better for me, but I was just thinking about things in a more lucrative. Yeah, God really needs to be at the center of all of our decision making. Cameron, you have a point?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I was going to put my hand up and speak about that, because for those people who are watching this, and ourselves included, I think that sometimes we have to be able to differentiate between what we want out of life versus what we call success. Because oftentimes the world we live in now, success is often defined by how much money you have or how many awards you've won. But in actual fact, the reality is that you should be asking yourself, what do I want? What do I call success? And to some people, success might simply mean to have a business that pays the bills, for example, or to have a job that is paying your bills, making sure that you're looking after your family and everyone is living comfortably. That might be success for them. While for others, it might be to have even more than that, whatever that looks like. But what I would like to say, obviously we're God-fearing people and we believe that God wants us to prosper, be in good health, but also our spiritual side of things need to prosper and to do well. Because a lot of time, I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot of wealthy people, celebrities, whatever they are, they've got success, and we look at the surface of it, they got money, fame, and you name it. But inside, they're struggling. They're really, really struggling. And oftentimes when I see these people, I know it sounds bad, but I almost feel pity for them, or, I feel sorry for them, because I'm thinking, here you are with millions. Like, you cannot walk out on the street without somebody seeing you and saying, there goes, whoever it is. But really and truly, what they're really probably searching for is missing. And, I think that, Sister Audrey mentioned, and, Adenika also mentioned, if God is not at the center, and if you don't have that fundamental building block, you might rocket to the skies, but you might find yourself come crashing down because the foundations were never there. And going back to where we talk about our children and building generational wealth, that foundation starts way before your bank account starts to grow. It starts from those times spent teaching your children about appreciating life, appreciating the small things, so that when the big things come, whether it's the car or the house or the money or whatever it is, all of a sudden they have not forgotten about where they're coming from and those smaller things. So they'll be able to manage and understand those bigger things. With my girls, I've done a video on my channel some months ago where Sophia and I, we actually bought them some Christmas presents from a charity shop. And I know for some people just like, what? Why would you do that? But we bought them some toys from a charity shop. And you know what? We didn't tell them that those toys came from a charity shop until after they've thoroughly enjoyed playing with them and smashed a few of them to pieces and so on. And then they watched the video back and they saw it and said, hold on, you didn't go to the normal shop to buy it, they said. But we were trying to teach them a lesson to say that, listen, you don't always have to spend a lot to find joy and happiness and enjoyment. You don't need to do what the Joneses are doing in order to enjoy yourself or to feel accomplished or successful. And I think that for any business person, anybody watching this right now, forget about everybody else for a second and think about you and your God. Think about what you're trying to get out of your life. We're only here for a short time, and what you're trying to achieve and accomplish. What's going to make you happy? And I think when you can do that, even when you get setbacks, if you were happy here and you've reached here, even when you get setbacks, you'll still be happy, if you see what I mean. So just a little bit of advice, take time to know why you're doing what you're doing, and not just doing it because it's the natural progression or what you see everybody else do. I just wanted to share that with you guys.
Thank you very much, Cameron. Thank you. Tamara, how would you answer the question that I asked initially?
I would say my biggest setbacks, like going off what everyone else has said, because everyone's pretty much said things that I agree with. So I'd say, to summarize it, my top two setbacks would be impatience or a lack of patience and education. Before I do what I did now, I studied nursing. I was raised to go for a career where I'd always have stability, so nursing, teaching, anything that kind of lines. And so I went to uni, I did nursing at first, and I loved the career, but I didn't love the politics of it. There's no money in it. There's a lot of the things, it didn't make sense. And I prayed about leaving, and I prayed about taking time out and stuff, but I didn't wait for the answer before I made my next decision. And if you're going to give something to God, you have to wait for the answer. It's not a genie. You don't get it quick. And I think that's something I've had to learn, is that I have to wait for him to respond before I make my next move. Anyway, I left nursing. I was looking for a job. I decided to start a HR course online, just rushed into it, didn't really think about it. I thought about it, but I rushed into it, didn't really finish it because I no longer wanted to do HR, so that wasted my money. But again, because of my lack of patience, rushed into something thinking that would better me when it didn't. When I came out of that, we started into pandemic, and I was looking for a new job. And I was looking for a job, couldn't find anything proper. So I thought, I'm just going to go back to uni. But I'm applying for these jobs without taking it to God, without praying about it first. So I'm applying for all these jobs, couldn't find a job, so I said I'm going to go back to uni. And while I started uni, that's when I ended up landing the job I'm in now. So now the education is a setback, because where I would want to do more in work or be able to stay till 6 or 7, my time is limited because of university. So I'd say the setbacks would be just being more patient. If I'm going to give something to God, give him the time to respond. He doesn't work on my time, I work on his. So allowing him to actually work and see the works happening rather than just hoping for the best and then hoping that is what he wanted. I need to wait more. And education, because really and truly, not to just I don't know what happened, but not to discourage anybody, but there are a lot of things that you can do without needing to have a degree. But if I did my research and actually looked for myself, or even just spoke to more people, I would have had that knowledge and information, and I would have been able to do the things I'm doing now without having to go to university twice and spend all the money I've spent. You know what I mean? Because it's expensive. You know, I see it come out of the paycheck and I'm not happy about it. So if I could go back, I'll do things so much differently.
Thank you. And I like the fact that you brought up the university point, because a lot of people don't know this, but it was one of the many things that were done during the lockdown and recently that the government's just decided to just casually just say, but not actually announce in the news. So anyone that goes to university this coming September, they won't pay off their student finance until they retire. And I'm not going to lie, when I saw that, I thought to myself, this is just taking the mick, because a degree does not provide any sure income. And it's also a case where I feel like once you've got that degree, there's this false impetus that's given to every single employer that makes you then think, okay, this person's qualified, anything that I asked them to do. And for somebody that comes from a finance background, anyone that knows anything about finance, you know that not one of the things that you can just pick up just because you've read it in a textbook. You have to have practical knowledge. And I think that's where university kind of fails quite a lot, because it's very heavily focused on making sure you understand, you know, the higher level of understanding things. In terms of the practicality of it, there is none of that unless you decide to say, okay, I want to do something. Or in my instance, I said, you know what, I want to take a year out to actually learn how to do this stuff. But one thing I found from speaking to so many people is not just the fact that obviously they don't want to do things because of, you know, that their parents have told them, you know what, nursing is a good job or it's a good job and everything. It's also a case where we've kind of created this bubble around ourselves where you think to ourselves, we need to make sure we have a stable income. But we always think about that, even if it's at our own detriment to our own mental health, to the point that we think to ourselves, you know what, I need to do this because this is the only way I can provide. But we're really being honest with ourselves. If we're earning six figures and we're not happy, who are we pleasing? We're not even pleasing ourselves. We're just basically just in our pockets, which at the end of the day, is only going to give us temporary gratifications. I really like the point that you brought up, and it's so interesting that all of you guys have gone through all these different experiences where, even though tomorrow you said that or said you've all basically said everything to answer the question, but funny thing is, every single thing that you guys have said kind of gives a different way of looking at the whole picture of it in general. And I really like the fact that you said that. But another reason why I really wanted to start this actual raise discussion is because from speaking to a lot of young people, it's quite disheartening to hear that some people will get maybe the second, maybe even the first year of their degree, and then they'll say to themselves, you know what, I don't see myself doing this. But then they just think to themselves, the lashback that I'll get from my parents if I just decide to quit is not even worth it. So I'm just going to struggle and get through it, not realizing that obviously when they do get their first paychecks, they're going to see the fact that not only is NI gone, not only is income tax gone, but student loan is also going to go on. For, you know, in a couple of years, they're going to make a couple more taxes that we don't know about. But it's really discouraging to hear that sometimes people actually think that it's better to please other people rather than please themselves, especially when it comes to their career. Because at the end of the day, one thing that a friend of mine said so well to me is that you spend most of your time in your job, not with your families, with your job. And if you're doing something you're not happy with doing, I mean, at the end of the day, you're not really going to sleep well at night. But what I wanted to ask you all is if you could give one piece of advice to anyone that's listening, what is that one piece of advice?
I like to start. For me, is know yourself, really. Know your strengths and your weaknesses and capitalize on your strengths and identify your weaknesses and work on them to improve it. So I think now we no longer call them weaknesses. We call it areas for improvement. Like my other sister said, impatience, you know, for her. So as long as you identify, you start working on it. And once you identify it, you're no longer frightened and stressed out by, you know that, okay, I'm an impatient person, and you start baby steps working on it. So know yourself. For me, it took me years decades to know myself and to know what my strengths are, So when you know yourself, that's really the first key. Know yourself and commit yourself to the Lord as a business partner. Those are the two things I would say. And be true to yourself. Do you want to get into nursing? Yes or no? Be true to yourself. Even if you come up, as you're saying to the young people listening, if you wake up every morning and think, I want to do dancing, and that's what keeps coming to you, then go ahead and do it. Be true to yourself. Go ahead and do it. There's no, I'm happy my sister here said about the nursing. It's not what it's all cut out to be. Everybody's jumping, going to nursing. What's nursing? To be a nurse, you have to be nurturing and caring and kind and be a people's person. If you're not a people's person, if you're a task-driven person like I am, and they say, go and give this person an injection, and I go and they are oohing and eyeing and making faces. I don't have time for that. I'm here to stab you and get on to the next person. So nursing is definitely not for me. Know yourself, and things like that. It's really, really important. Know yourself, listen to God, and, take it from there. That's me.
Thank you very much for that, G. Right?
I was just sitting there and I'm thinking about it, and I think that's sound advice. I would have probably said that one as well. But I think, as I mentioned a bit earlier, is like, we're only here for a short. We might think that 100 years, if you live to see 100, like everyone is like, whoa, that's amazing. But it goes by quick. I don't know about you guys. I can't remember when I was 15 anymore. Like, it's a bit scary. All of the kids that were little kids to me are now calling me uncle. Time goes by so quick. Yeah. And you need to know, with the limited time that we have here right now on planet Earth, what do you want out of this life? What would make you happy? And what would give you joy? For us as Christian, we know that God gives us the ultimate joy, but we have to live here until that great day when we make it to heaven. So what makes you happy? Like right now, I'm sitting in a hotel room, and I wasn't sure if I'll be able to join, as I was saying to you, Kingsley. And I'm finding my happiness. I'm finding the things that make me joyous. If you gave me £100,000, yes, that would encourage me along the way right now. But I'm finding that spending time, I'm celebrating with my wife at the moment, our 10th year anniversary. And it just really helped us to refocus, to say that, hold on, this makes us happy. And as Sister Audrey was just saying, don't do something that isn't going to bring you joy and happiness, because you could have all the money, and I go back to that, massive business, but still be miserable. That's no way to live. So find what makes you happy. And the second thing that I would say is to manage your expectations, because I think sometimes we become so despondent because we feel like we've failed. What is failure anyway? Failure is not willing to give it a go. That is failure. If you give it a go and it doesn't work out, that doesn't mean that you failed. It just means that you weren't as successful as you would have liked, So I think it's just reevaluating what you want out of whatever you're doing, however big or small. And again, going back to just finding, okay, if it doesn't work, I'm still going to be happy. But I think a lot of that comes from your relationship with God. And that has to be the quintessential thing for anybody watching this right now. You've got to have that relationship with God, because, as many people have said earlier on, he's always got your back. And if you can do that, manage your expectations and find what really makes you happy, whether you got 1 million or £1 in the bank, you'll still be able to enjoy this thing called life. So that's the bit of advice that I would give to anyone watching.
Thank you very much for that, Kamari. Very sound advice. Adenike?
I feel like they've both just said it already, but I would say through your growth journey and whatever it is, always set, it might sound strange to say this, but set boundaries through your growth. And it's very important to set those boundaries and those goals, those target goals, because if you don't, sometimes you will find yourself reversing back to where you came from, where it's not meant to be where you are. So I think with the boundary side of things, it's including know your limits, know who you discuss your goals with, knowing like who's for you, who's against you, knowing like I can speak to this person and trust this person. Like Enoch said earlier, like therapy, that's definitely important. It's definitely important. And I think those things help you along the way, and staying true to yourself through your dreams and your goals, and knowing that ultimately, will God be pleased with you? Like, is God pleased with this decision I'm making? Sometimes we fall off the ladder. That's okay. That's natural. That's human. But it's knowing whether that standard is the standard that God has called you to be at. And as long as you know that that standard is what God has called you to be at, continue to push through it. No matter the obstacles, no matter what comes your way, whether it's family, whether it's friends, siblings, whichever, know that loads will forsake you, but God will always be for you. So have that in your heart and know the reason why you always started something in the first place, because God doesn't give us something just to just sit on. He gives us something to take it and run and to do much more with. So I would definitely say that, yeah, God ultimately put him at the forefront of everything, and just always stay true to who you are. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Adnika. And last but not least, Samara.
I would say to trust the process and not rush the process. Everything happens for a reason. It might not make sense to you now, but it will make sense when it needs to make sense. The journey is just as important as the destination. So don't rush how you have to get there to get there. Let things take time, because you never know what you'd miss out on trying to do it your way rather than the way God intended for it to happen. So I'd give advice.
Thank you very much. I think that's all the questions I had to ask, but thank you very much. Thank you all very much for just finding the time to be able to do this. I know obviously Cameron, you should be celebrating, but I take you out of that for you to be able to give us advice. But seriously, you are on a very serious note. Thank you all for the advice you've given, and I believe it's not only just helped the people that view the YouTube, but it's definitely helped me as well. So with that being said, let's just have a closing word of prayer, and I'm just going to take off the stream. Heavenly Father, I'd like to just thank you, Lord, for just being with us all during this discussion. We've taught ourselves very important and key things that we need to know to be able to thrive in this thing we understand. So I'm asking that, Lord, you help us so that after we've had this experience, we may come away from it not wanting to go back into our old habits, but to want to be able to implement the right changes that are needed to help us to become the best versions of ourselves that you want us to. Continue to be with us and abide with us throughout the rest of this Sabbath day. I ask that, Lord, you will help us, Lord, to just take advantage of every single opportunity that's given to us, Lord. Be able to really not just empower ourselves, but also to empower our fellow man. Jesus, I pray all these things.